Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the First Unitarian Society of Milwaukee's online worship service. I'm Reverend Jennifer Nordstrom, and I'm honored to serve as the First Unitarian Society of Milwaukee's senior minister. We welcome people of all genders, sexualities, ages, races, ethnicities, histories, and bodies. We welcome your mind, your heart, and your spirit. We welcome all you're bringing with you this morning and all your heart longs to set down. During the COVID-19 public health crisis, all in-person First Church activities have moved to online or been rescheduled. We are offering all ages religious education every Sunday at 10 a.m. and youth group at 1 p.m. online. You can find the link in your RE weekly update. Sign up for that update to find out more about religious education and family ministry, including ways to connect with our families, our faith, and our community every week. Join us for a virtual coffee hour this morning after service at 10 a.m. or at 12 p.m. where we'll chat in small groups. You can find the Zoom meeting link in the live stream chat now, as well as in your Friday announcement. The password is UUNKE, all lowercase. Members, guests, and visitors are all welcome, but you do have to bring your own coffee. Our Sunday forum is on Zoom this morning at 10:10 a.m. with our own BJ Ehrman, co-chair of the Hearing Loss Association of America's Metro Milwaukee chapter, presenting on the danger of untreated hearing loss. You can find the link to join in your live chat now, or you can find it in your email. Join our virtual Journey to Membership classes. This online format might be perfect for those folks who could just never fit those membership classes in. Led by our ministers and staff and lay leaders, this class is a prerequisite to joining First Church, but you're not required to join in order to attend the class. Sign up if you're interested in membership or if you're just curious to learn more about it. Classes will be held the 4 Wednesdays of May 6th through 27th, from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. You can find the link to sign up in your live chat, or you can email First Church Membership Coordinator Lynn Jacoby. Join me and Reverend Dina to connect and reflect on Thursday evenings from 6 to 7 p.m. on Zoom. You can find the Zoom meeting link in your live chat now, in your announcements, and we'll also post a reminder on our First Church Facebook group. I will also host a lunch with the senior minister on Facebook Live on Monday between 12 and 12:30 p.m. on the First Church Facebook group. Please be sure to join that group where we'll be sharing announcements and videos and other ways to connect during this time of physical distancing. Once again, I invite you into our worship service by asking you to repeat our mission after me. We gather to nurture the spirit, engage the mind, and inspire action. Our opening words this morning are from Brene Brown. We will not go back to normal. Normal never was. Our pre-corona existence was not normal other than that we normalized greed and inequity and exhaustion and depletion and extraction and disconnection and confusion and rage and hoarding and hate and lack. We should not long to return to that, my friends. We're being given the opportunity to stitch a new garment, one that fits all of humanity and nature. Now let's return to our beloved sanctuary to see me light the flaming chalice, a symbol of Unitarian Universalism.
Good morning. My name is Kimberly Tomczyk Carlson, and I am the Director of Religious Education at First Unitarian Society of Milwaukee. And it is my pleasure to bring you a story today called Those Darn Squirrels. On the outskirts of town, on the edge of a forest, there was a very little old house. And the only thing older than that little house was the little old man who lived inside, Old Man Fuquire. Old Man Fuquire was so old that when he sneezed, dust came out. He was also a grump. He hated pie and puppies. The only thing he liked was birds. All summer long, the old man painted birds that visited his backyard. There were whirlybirds, and there were bobbabirds, and there were yabba and even a rare flugelbird. Fuquire paintings, well, they weren't very good, but the squirrels never said anything. When the air turned crisp and the leaves began to change color, the old man grew sad. He knew that soon those birds would fly south for the winter and he would be lonely once again. But then he had an idea. He thought if he fed the birds, maybe they would stick around. So he built the most beautiful bird feeders and he put them all around his backyard and he filled them with berries and delicious seeds. And soon birds came from all over just to eat in his bird feeders. But the birds, they weren't the only ones who really liked those bird feeders. The squirrels did too. Not many people know this, but squirrels are the cleverest of all woodland creatures. In fact, they are fuzzy little geniuses. They can make a house out of a tree, a bed out of a bunch of leaves, and a box kite out of twig, dirt, and squirrel spit. They are also excellent at math. Winter was fast approaching and those squirrels needed to gather as much food as they could, so they decided to take some of the bird food. The birds were not happy. Neither was Old Man Fuquire. When he discovered what happened, he shook his fist and he yelled, "Those darn squirrels!" He filled up the feeders again, but this time he hung them on a clothesline. He went back inside, confident that the squirrels could no longer get to the seeds and the berries. But the squirrels, they were determined. They devised a plan, and this time they took all the food from the bird feeders. The birds were furious. "Those darn squirrels!" yelled Old Man Fuquire. "Yum," said the squirrels. Now it was Old Man Fuquire's turn to devise a plan. He went to the store and got all sorts of supplies, clamps and springs and wires and tools, and he built a veritable fortress around his bird feeders, and then he refilled them very carefully. Now the squirrels stayed up all night and they worked out their strategy, and finally they had it, the perfect plan. They put on their tiny helmets and prepared to launch themselves into the air over the fence between the lasers and right into the bird feeders. The first squirrel misfired and hit a tree. The second squirrel went too high and landed in a bucket. The third one sailed clear over the house, and the birds laughed and laughed. They each had one delicious mouthful, and then they flew south for the winter. After the birds left, Old Man Fuquire was lonely, just as he was every year. He fixed himself some cottage cheese and pepper, his favorite snack, but he was still lonely. He looked out the window. The squirrels could tell. He wasn't happy. "Go away," shouted the old man. "I don't like you squirrels." The squirrels had a deep meeting inside a large tree, and they decided to give the old man a present to make up for taking his seeds and his berries. Not many people know this, but squirrels are not only little fuzzy geniuses, they also collect just about everything they find on the ground. But what would Fuquire like? Finally, they had it, the perfect gift. They stacked all of their loose change on Old Man Fuquire's doorstep. There were dimes and pennies and nickels and quarters. All total, it was $47.36. Maybe those squirrels aren't so bad, said Fuquire, but I still like birds better. That gave the squirrels another idea. They had raided their junk collection again, and they got to work. When Old Man Fuquire woke up the next morning, he was amazed to see that all the birds had returned. But wait, those weren't birds. They were squirrels in disguise. Great googly moogly, said Old Man Fuquire. This will make quite a painting. He ran outside and took down the lasers and wires and the spring-loaded trapeze. He turned all the bird feeders into squirrel feeders. Then he painted until his brush ran out of bristles. The squirrels were so overjoyed. They had a party in Old Man Fuquire's house. Those darn squirrels, said Mr. Fuquire. And he shook his old man fist, but he smiled. The end. Thank you for joining us for our story. Reverend Jennifer will now lead you in a guided meditation.
Thank you so much to Kimberly for that fun story. It was delightful. Dear ones, because of the unprecedented times in which we're living, and the ways that all of our lives are being touched by the grief and the loss of this global coronavirus pandemic, we're starting a new practice for the pandemic called the COVID candle. As of yesterday, we've counted 53,625 deaths from COVID-19 in the United States. The COVID candle is for when one of those deaths is the death of a loved one of one of our members. If you have had a loved one die from coronavirus and would like the COVID candle lit for them during Sunday worship, contact one of our ministers. This week, we've had 2 deaths of members' loved ones. Sophia Antonopoulos Bocas, mother of Nick Bocas and mother-in-law of Patricia McFarland, age 96, died from COVID-19 on April 21st, 2020, in a hospice in the Philadelphia area. Elizabeth Habak McCollum, known as Betty, and mother of Vashti Lozier, died Tuesday night, April 21st, 2020, at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York City. She was 79 years old. As our pandemic practice, we light our COVID candle to honor the lives and the COVID-19 deaths of members' loved ones. Thus, today, we light our candle in honor of Sophia Antonopoulos Bocas and Betty Habak McCollum. I'd like to invite you now to join me in a time of guided meditation, which will be followed by silence and then spirit of light. So just take a moment now and get comfortable in your body, whatever that means. Maybe it means feeling your sit bones resting in the chair beneath you, or your feet on the floor grounding you. Maybe it means feeling the vertebrae of your spine stacking one on top of the next. Maybe it means feeling the top of your head connecting you to all that is. Maybe it means feeling your breath moving in and out of your body, bringing you into being here and now. Spirit of life and love, Holy One, of our being and our becoming, that which is sacred within, among, and beyond that. Comfort us this morning in the midst of all the pain in the world. May we feel your feathery wings wrap gently around us, holding us in love. May we rest in that love, in the larger love that holds us and all that we love, in the larger love that holds all. May we feel our connection to that love and to each other and to all that is. May the connection hold us, and in time, may love heal us and the world. May it be so, and amen. Now let's return to our beloved sanctuary where the singing bowl will frame our shared silence, and then we can sing Spirit of Life.
Good morning. I'm Amy Wilborn, and I'm delighted to be your worship associate this morning. I hope you're home, safe, healthy, and comfortable. I also want to tell you how much I miss seeing your faces at church. So I was raised in a loving home in Neenah, Wisconsin. I'm the youngest of 5 children of parents nearly 2 generations older than I am. My mother was close to 40 when she had me. Both of my parents were raised in strict Southern homes, and neither of them went to college. My father dropped out of school after the 7th grade. My parents met in their early 20s and got married 2 weeks after their first date. They often told me that they didn't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of back then, but they were happy. My mother was funny, affectionate, generous, and loved by many, and at 91 years old, she still is. My dad, who's no longer living, was a breadwinner and worked 6, sometimes 7 days a week running an airline. So my mother was the chief cook and bottle washer, as she would say, and the disciplinarian. My siblings and I received our discipline Southern style. We were spanked with the good old-fashioned switch, and occasionally had our mouths washed out with soap. Appearances were important to my parents, my mother especially. She always wore makeup in public, dressed nicely, and dieted off and on to control her weight. People's physical appearances, including my own, were always a topic of conversation and criticism. I knew that I could always earn her approval by being thin, wearing my hair the way she liked, and dressing according to her standards. But it was often hard to measure up. It became pretty clear to me by the time I was a young adult that my mother and I would not be close emotionally. Much like her way of disciplining, her way of responding to emotional pain was through shaming. The things I wanted to share were not things that I was supposed to share with my parents, at least not the way my parents were raised. I was a sensitive girl and a young woman with big feelings, but I also wanted my mother's approval. Those big feelings seemed unwelcome sometimes, and I learned that playing small was easier than being myself with my family, especially my mom. It's taken time, but I've forgiven my parents, especially my mother, for their emotional limitations. Becoming a parent myself is when I began to be able to forgive. Parenting gave me an opportunity to parent the way that I had longed to be parented. It also helped me feel more compassionate toward my mother when it must have been very difficult to raise 5 kids with a husband who worked too much. I don't play small for my mom anymore. I've learned to combat shame with empathy for my mother and for the young Amy who wanted to be mothered in a different way. I've come to realize that my mother was given limited tools to parent with, and even more limited was her toolbox to deal with emotional pain, her own and mine. Forgiving my mom has freed me to be myself. I am free from having to try and please her because I don't need her approval to feel good about myself anymore. Of course, I want to do things that make her happy, but letting go of that need to please has allowed me to step into my own light instead of waiting for her to shine hers on me. Comments about my hair, my clothes, my weight, which my mom still sometimes makes, they sting, but can no longer damage me. Forgiveness doesn't make the pain go away, but forgiving my mother has allowed me to love her and care for her in this very turbulent and frightening time when she is the more vulnerable one. Forgiveness has allowed me to say she's done the best she can with the tools she has. After all, that's what I'm doing as a parent. I'm doing the best I can with the tools I have, and I can only hope my sons forgive me one day for the things that I didn't get right.
Thank you so much to Patricia Witt for that lovely rendition of Juarez Capriccio Opus 84, number 1. It's just beautiful, Patricia. Thank you. This week, I was really grateful to participate in a press conference held by the Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice, supporting the Badger Bounce Back Plan. Because we want to prevent the spread of COVID-19 in Wisconsin, there were a number of speakers from our community who shared their experiences of dealing with COVID-19. One of the speakers, the Reverend Dr. Marcus Allen, president of the African American Council of Churches and pastor of Mount Zion Baptist Church in Madison, shared the story of what happened to his mother, Gloria Allen, who lives in Milwaukee. Gloria got sick. She had the symptoms of COVID-19, and she went to visit her doctor in mid-March, and they diagnosed her with a sinus infection. By the end of March, she went back because she was still suffering, and at that point, they told her that she had bronchitis. And then a week later, in early April, she really wasn't feeling well. And she called them again to tell them about her cough and how she was having trouble breathing, and her doctor prescribed the steroid and immunosuppressant prednisone. Over the course of her illness, as she sought medical care for almost 3 weeks, Gloria had classic symptoms of COVID-19. At the time, Wisconsin was in the public health emergency, and coronavirus was spreading quickly through Milwaukee, particularly through the Black community in Milwaukee. But Gloria's doctor never told her that she might have COVID-19 or shared any information with her about how to protect her family or her community if she was contagious. Gloria lives with and is the primary caretaker of her 86-year-old mother. On the morning of April 9th, Gloria called her doctor again because she was having trouble breathing. They never called her back that day, and at 7 p.m., she was having so much trouble breathing that she called 911. The Milwaukee Fire Department came to her house and evaluated her. And even though she had a 103-degree fever, they never took her temperature, and a deep cough and severe shortness of breath, they did say there seemed to be something wrong with her lungs. They told her that she wasn't sick enough for them to transport her to the hospital. The Milwaukee Fire Department also advised Gloria Allen not to go to the hospital because she wasn't sick enough. So she didn't go. Gloria stayed home that night. The next day, when her son, Marcus, called her to check on her, he was extremely alarmed about how much trouble she was having breathing, so he called her primary physician himself. And at that point, her doctor finally raised the alarm bell and told Gloria to go to the hospital, where she tested positive for COVID-19. Gloria Allen is Black. She received inferior treatment at the hands of her primary care physician and the Milwaukee Fire Department. She received inferior treatment that put her life at risk in the COVID-19 pandemic. She received inferior treatment that is in marked contrast to the treatment that white patients in Milwaukee with similar symptoms have received. Thank goodness, Gloria Allen survived. She got the treatment that she needed when she went into the hospital that day, and she's safe and well and back home with her family. But not everyone, particularly not everyone in the Black community in Milwaukee, which is being the hardest hit by the COVID-19 pandemic, does survive. Audre Lorde gave a powerful speech in 1981 entitled "The Uses of Anger." Lorde said, "Anger is loaded with information and with energy. It's potentially useful against those oppressions, personal and institutional, which brought the anger into being. Focused with precision, it can become a powerful source of energy serving progress and change." Lorde clarified, "When I speak of change, I don't mean a simple switch of positions or a temporary lessening of tensions, nor the ability to smile and feel good. Instead," she said, "I am speaking of a basic and radical alteration in those assumptions underlying our lives. Anger expressed and translated into action in the service of our vision of our future is a liberating and strengthening act of clarification. Reverend Marcus Allen did not say whether he was angry about what happened to his mother or not, but I know that I am. And I also know that Reverend Allen was able to take action on behalf of his mother that will benefit other people in the Black community in Milwaukee. He launched investigations into his mother's treatment, both by her physician at Aurora Healthcare and into the Milwaukee Fire Department. Reverend Allen said that the Milwaukee Fire Department was responsive and honest about what went wrong in responding to his mother. In particular, Assistant Fire Chief Aaron Lipsky has been very responsive to Reverend Allen. He was in conversation with Reverend Allen every day, and he sent him the investigations report stating that the fire department's team did not follow the proper protocols for dealing with COVID-19. More importantly than sharing that investigation report and being responsive, the Milwaukee Fire Department is making institutional changes as a result of the incident and its investigation, which will hopefully mean better treatment for other Black people in Milwaukee. Reverend Allen is still waiting to hear back from Aurora Health, whose investigation into the incident is ongoing. In our time for all ages this morning, those darn squirrels wanted to mend their relationship with Mr. Fuquire. So they worked hard to put together a gift that would make Mr. Fuquire happy. First, they paid him reparations, that $46 and change that they had, and then they worked hard to repair the relationship, putting energy and creativity into making Mr. Fuquire happy, investing in his well-being. These are two steps that can be crucial in repairing harm and addressing the anger that results from harm. Step number one, making reparations for harm that has been caused. And step number two, paying careful attention to the well-being of the person or people who have been harmed. But what about when that doesn't happen? What happens when there are no reparations, no move to change for the future, sometimes when there's not even an admission of guilt? Personally, nothing infuriates me more than when someone who has caused harm refuses to acknowledge that harm or insists that they did not cause it. That kind of gaslighting just sends me over the edge of fury and into a place of wanting to pull recordings and video and proof that what happened, happened. In our story this morning, it mattered that the fire department admitted they did wrong by not taking Gloria Allen's temperature when they evaluated her and by telling her to stay home, even though they determined that there was something wrong with her lungs during the global COVID-19 pandemic. It matters to admit wrong. But sometimes that never happens. In Amy's story this morning, Amy's mother never had an epiphany that she was emotionally unavailable to her daughter. She was never able to look Amy in the eye and say, I did that to you. I harmed you in that way, and I'm sorry. Sometimes the deepest wounds that we experience involve someone that's unwilling or unable to admit culpability, and unwilling or unable to engage in the kind of repair that can heal a relationship. Sometimes the person can't admit to what they've done. Sometimes they don't even understand what they've done. Sometimes they don't seem to care. And sometimes they're just unavailable, either too far away or long gone or deceased. What sort of repair is available then to people who have been harmed? Pastor Nadia Bolz Weber says that holding on to anger at mistreatment keeps us connected to the person who harmed us. Forgiveness, she argues, is an act of liberation from that harm and from the person who caused the harm. Bolz Weber does not imagine this as repair to relationship, however, but rather as a severing from the harm that repairs the person who releases the relationship. Pastor Bolz Weber sees anger as a tether that keeps us chained to the harm and to the person who caused it, and that forgiveness cuts the chain. I've experienced that in my own life. When I was younger, a man harmed my family, and I hated him with a burning fury for years. I envisioned harming him in retribution, imagining that some sort of physical violence would release my rage. Then one night, many years later, I had a dream that helped me understand that man as part of the circle of all beings within the web of larger life. That dream allowed me to forgive him on a spiritual level. I still don't condone his actions, which were profoundly wrong and always will be. But forgiving him on the larger spiritual plane has released me from intrusive thoughts of repetitive rage. It cut the chain that bound me to him, and that forgiveness freed me. The Reverend Dr. Rebecca Ann Parker has written about her anger at the man who abused her in the book Proverbs of Ashes, which she co-authored with Rita Nakashima-Barak. In that book, Parker writes that love is the wisdom of life that knows when connection can heal and when separation will make life flourish. In Dr. Parker's life, compassion for the man who abused her kept her tied to that abuse. It was separation that gave her life again and allowed her to care for herself. Dr. Parker gave herself the gift of freedom from the man and the harm he caused by letting go of that compassion and letting go of the connection to him. Still a universalist, Reverend Dr. Parker is comfortable letting God do the work of forgiveness rather than requiring herself to do it. God, who is infinite in all things, including mercy, can be responsible for loving and forgiving that evil. Dr. Parker was released from him and from the violence by releasing him and compassion for him into the hands of God. In her speech, Audre Lorde said, "My anger has meant pain to me, but it's also meant survival. And before I give it up, I'm going to be sure that there's something at least as powerful to replace it on the road to clarity. My own anger helped me survive as well. Forgiveness cannot free anyone who does not survive, so survival must come first. Anger, for me, was a necessary protective mechanism on my slow journey to healing, keeping me safely separate from the person who caused the harm. Like Reverend Allen's pursuit of justice that led him to correct wrongs in the larger system that harmed his mother and thereby prevent other members of the Black community in Milwaukee from also being harmed, my own anger led me to work to change the system that caused me harm. But as I healed, I wanted even more powerful medicine than that. And forgiveness severed the final tether to harm and gave me liberation. Lord closed your speech by saying, I speak here as a woman of color who's not bent upon destruction, but upon survival. We use whatever strengths we have fought for, including anger, to help define and fashion a world where all our sisters can grow, where our children can love, and where the power of touching and meeting another woman's difference and wonder will eventually transcend the need for destruction. This time we're in includes so much. It includes destruction and more destruction, further along the lines that destruction has always trod, that old path of racism, of homophobia, of greed and indifference and cruelty. But this time also includes cracks in those old paths, in those old systems, places where we can use the crowbar of love and solidarity to pry open the path for a new way. Places where we can use the space and the quiet for personal and collective healing. Eventually, we will transcend the need for destruction. I hope that on your journey with harm, you know that what matters most is that you heal and that you participate in the larger healing of the world. Sometimes anger is an effective tool on that road, and sometimes forgiveness is the tool that severs the chain back to the heart. Travel on your road at your own pace. There's no reason to rush or to push yourself to use a tool your spirit doesn't need. As I said last week, this time of COVID-19 is a time of collective trauma. We're all experiencing it. And any of us who've experienced individual trauma will find it triggered right now. If you have been harmed, the effects of that harm are going to be surfacing. Being triggered, having your body constantly responding to threat is just exhausting. I want you to know that you're not alone in that. There are so many of us here with you and rooting for you. The lovers and the artists and the light workers of the world, as well as the larger love that holds us all and never lets anyone go. We're all sending you love during this time and calling to you to encourage you on your path of healing and onto the path of healing the community. This time is a time of great shifts and transition. May we all be able to pay attention to our own soul's calling, as well as to the needs of the world, and use these shifts to heal what has been harmed. Each of us moving at our own pace and using the tools that our souls need to heal. May it be so, and amen. Now let's listen to Dale Skaggs invite us into generosity.
Good morning. We know this coronavirus pandemic is affecting our members in many different ways, but for those of us who are able to give right now, it is more important than ever to share our resources with people who have been harder hit by the pandemic. Our church supports members and friends of our congregation spiritually, emotionally, and materially, and supports people in Milwaukee through our relationships with our community partners. Your pledges are the foundation of our congregation and the core of our spiritual practice of generosity. In addition, we are grateful for non-pledge gifts from folks who appreciate our online ministry and are benefiting from it. We also have a special fund for people who need financial support called the Minister's Discretionary Fund. You can give to the church by texting 73256 with the message "Give to UU $, the word give, the number 2, UU $. Follow the prompts and choose pledge payment, non-pledge gift, or minister's discretionary. You can also give to First Church by going to our web-based giving link, onrealm.org/FUSM/give/First Church. You can see both these options on your screen. We also encourage you to give directly to our community partners. You can find a list of their needs on our website at UU-Milwaukee.org/support-Milwaukeeans-COVID-19. That link should be on your screen as well. Today, we're highlighting the work of the Interchange Food Pantry, which feeds people from all over Milwaukee. To give to Interchange, go to the GoFundMe page at the link on your screen, or you can go to gofundme.com and search for Interchange Food Pantry. All of your offerings to our community partners and to First Church will be gratefully received. And now, as always, but especially at this time when our interdependence is so evident, thank you for your generosity.
Much to Melanie DeMoore for giving us the gift of granting us permission to share that song, Sending You Right With You. It's just gorgeous. My dear ones, may you heal during this time of change. May you receive the light from the lovers and the artists and the light workers and your community and the larger love that holds us all and all we love. May you heal. May you be part of the great healing of the world. May it be so. Now let's return to our beloved sanctuary to extinguish the chalice and then listen to our postlude by our own Don Weimer. We'll see you next Sunday.